My Warframe is the strongest character. He can hit damage caps so no one can stop him.
Tenno!
For a long time now, there's been this assumption that game mechanics are somehow game lore. It's not been an issue for just Warframe, but rather every other video game community. But because Warframe is one of the benchmarks on the current video game market, and one of the most well-known games, this assumption is only made even worse. Instead of doing what you think I'll do, which is whine, moan, and complain about it, like every other member of the lore community, and act like yet another talking head, I wanted to go one step further. I wanted to completely reform the way you look at Warframes from scratch. No multipliers, no additives, no division, no fractions, no diminishing returns, none of that. The way I do things is so incredibly easy to the point that you will hate every single person who judges Warframe strength by the numbers they can pump out on a level 15 mission. If you don't think I can, I want to make a bet with you. Give me 10 minutes of your time. Just 10 minutes, and I will show you how easy it is to look at Warframes. And if I can't convince you, just go ahead and dislike my video. First, let's tackle the issue of game mechanics directly. Why do I not use game mechanics when I make content? The reason is, game mechanics use the current state of the video game at the time. For example, Wukong got nerfed, AoE weapons got nerfed, Arcane Energize got nerfed, Condition Overload got nerfed, and a ton of other stuff happened between a long time ago and right now. Think about it like this. If game mechanics are your primary mode of reasoning, why would Warframes intentionally nerf themselves, or their weapons, or their arcanes, or their Archon shards in any way? Why would Warframes do that when we're dealing with a literal eldritch god from the void who doesn't even have form? Something doesn't make sense because I don't think Warframes would rationally nerf themselves for any fight against any person. That just seems ridiculous to me on every degree possible. Next, we're going to talk about Baro Ki'Teer. Yes, that Baro Ki'Teer statement. Did I get your attention? Okay, so Baro Ki'Teer was able to make a deal with Man in the Wall because of the concept of eternalism. Let me explain Baro Ki'Teer for the new guys. Baro Ki'Teer used to grow up on this planet that was desolate, and he could have died to a sandstorm. However, the Warframe Inaro saved him, and he remembered that for his entire life. When he became an adult, he wanted to make as much money as possible and have all the resources in the world. So he became a Void Trader, where he found OP stuff from the Void, and he brings it to various relays and he sells it for ducats and money. Money talks, however, so he made a deal with a spark cloud from the Void named Man in the Wall, or to the people in verse, the Indifference. The Indifference merged more timelines into the one where you play the game all the time, 24/7. That's the timeline you're in. Moving on to why this matters, I'll let the game explain eternalism.
The Void offers humanity the truer telling of eternalism that now is merely a facet of a great block. It is relative, and we can change the frame. The tyranny of the present absolute is overthrown. Tomorrow is now its equal. Incorrect. Versions of reality now exist in which each parent survives. Lintana is assigned to one of them, but the other is no less real, and is theoretically accessible.
In simple terms, For every situation you're in that has an outcome, an identical situation with the same people happens somewhere else with a different outcome. This is the case for every person and every event that occurs in their lives. If you would like a direct example, look no further than Drifter. Also, another child that isn't the main character could have taken their place and be on the Zariman. Because the main character still has the ability to make choices, that means in eternalism, there will be different outcomes for those situations. It could be in the Warframe used. For example, I could do Second Dream, Whispers in the Wall, War Within, New War. Any of those storylines, I could use Khora, Ivara, Trinity, I could use Mesa, I could use Nidus, I could use Atlas, I could use Zephyr. Any pick of the Warframes, you could use any one of them. Because the main character has the ability to make choices, other timelines were created where even though the events were the same, a different Warframe was used. In a sense, every possibility happened. Because the main character has the ability to make choices, they create other possibilities with a similar outcome, but with different elements. 1999 is a good example of this. The plot twist of 1999 was more so that it's the ancient past, and there's alternates of the Warframes we see now. Arthur is Excalibur, Cyto 9, Quincy. Eternalism is DE's way of being able to mess with the future, the past, and other concurrent timelines without affecting the overall world of Warframe, and adding to the story in a way that makes sense. All of this leading to my core point being, it doesn't matter what Warframe you use in what quest. The power level of the antagonist is always the same, no matter the timeline you speculate. Because all antagonists are in the same tier in every timeline, that means every Warframe is in the same tier if every single Warframe would have a similar outcome against that antagonist. Stalker stabs the main character. Ballast no-sells the main character repeatedly. I could bring up multiple examples. The point being, every Warframe is in their own tier, but they're really good at doing something unique to them specifically. And because they have uncontested domain in that realm, you should fear what they're able to do with their unique skill set more than if they can blow up an asteroid or blow up a door. Look no further than Saren. Saren's not exactly cracking continents with every movement, but if you're around her long enough, you'll quickly figure out why living life is a privilege rather than a right. Alright, that's part 1 of the video done. Pause it right now. Do you think I deserved a dislike, or do you want to continue listening to the video? I'm gonna assume you believe me because you're continuing the video, so let's move on to some examples. Our first example, Sevagoth. In life, Sevagoth was the example of King from One Punch Man. Really scary guy if you look at his face, but behind all that is actually a nice person. Sevagoth is known for being the captain of the Tempest Starry, as well as having his own version of Doctor Strange's cloak. If you don't believe me, think about it. Both the cloak and the shadow are sentient, and they can make their own choices and do their own thing. The Warframe Sevagoth is different from Captain Sevagoth. Warframe Sevagoth is a representation of death itself. And funny enough, Sevagoth can cheat death. If someone turns you into target practice for some reason, Sevagoth becomes a tombstone. Then his shadow goes and plays bank teller, grabs all the soul dollars, and dunks them back into the bank, so that Sevagoth can be rich on souls. People might glaze Sevagoth as being the strongest Warframe because of his game mechanics, but he is pretty powerful lore-wise. Even his true damage would function as a form of durability negation if he were to touch you with it. That being said, the reason I bring up Sevagoth isn't because he's immortal, but because he's one of the easiest arguments for conceptual embodiment in Warframe. Our next example, Araxia. Among the Warframes, Araxia is fear. Whether you are a hunter, a warrior, a sharpshot, a hitman, femme fatale, it doesn't matter. On some level, you embody the word predator, and your target embodies the word prey. Upon mantling the role of a predator, you invoke Araxia's name. Araxia is fear itself, with her form, a spider, being the representation of such a thing. If Man in the Wall, the most terrifying character in verse, says Araxia is completely nuts, what does that say about Araxia? If Garuda, one of the Warframes people fear most, is the Blood Queen and she's been in the game for a while, yet Man in the Wall saying Araxia is nuts, that should tell you that in comparison to Araxia, Garuda's pretty put together. I don't know the conclusion or the outcome of what that would mean, but that terrifies me. Our next example, Trinity. We all joke about the fact that she's a healer even though Overguard and Shieldgate exist, but she's really good at what she does. And you know what's even more terrifying about Trinity? If she looks at you, and she feels like it, she's gonna use Energy Vampire on you. You're gonna get turned into a real meal for $5. And the rest of your friends? The grocery bill. A very quick example, but even Trinity, who is a healer, has a conceptual embodiment. Our next example, Oberon. Since he just got reworked, I may as well talk about him too. If Titania is the Fairy Queen, then you have Lord Oberon, the Fairy King. Oberon represents the Great Sage, the protector of all life. If you thought Oberon was a pacifist, however, you'd be wrong. Dead wrong. If you want a pacifist, look at Hashirama from Naruto. No, this guy Oberon is nature's wrath. He literally embodies nature running demon time on those who wronged it. Oberon is here to make your life miserable, and if you happen to be in any forest or wildlife environment, he can control the entire terrain and make your life miserable like it was a domain expansion. Don't mess with Oberon, boys. Moving on to our next example, Limbo. Limbo is an unmitigated genius. Among the Warframes, I would take a guess and say he is among the top 10 smartest Warframes, undisputed. While Protea has the benefit of being able to mess with time, Limbo, the person while they were alive, using math alone, found a whole other reality. We generally refer to it as the Rift. The Rift overlaps the location that Limbo is at one time. We're unsure if the Rift overlaps the entire cosmology, or if it's just relative to Limbo. I say it's just relative to Limbo, simply because it's easy to prove that through the gameplay. As a functional argument, Limbo isn't good because he's a conceptual embodiment. Limbo's good because he represents the difference between a piloted Warframe and an unpiloted Warframe. Limbo, the person while they were alive, couldn't go into the Rift. In fact, they got past tense because they didn't math right, or their bodies weren't strong enough. We're not sure. It's mostly a quest, and it's a lot of guessing, and we found body parts, and that's all we have. Limbo, the Warframe, however, casually goes in and out of the Rift 24/7, can pull people in there, and can make a reverse pocket dimension. He is terrifying for sure. Most definitely one of the most dangerous Warframes amongst all the Warframes. But physically, he's not as strong as, say, Atlas, Rhino, etc., etc. Our last example for today, Kome. Kome represents the conceptual embodiment of fate. Like how the other Warframes embody a concept, fate is Kome's domain. Functionally, she's terrifying. She can go on forever. Over time, she becomes more and more powerful as she racks up more and more decrees. combined with her apparent manipulation over fate, even if minor, makes her a threat. She could pull any environment relative to her surroundings into her favor. If you're gonna fight Kome, you need to go in with the knowledge that you're messing with someone who can manipulate fate. It is true that Kome may not be as physically strong as the other Warframes, but nothing quite screams irony like you trying to attack something weaker than yourself, only for Kome to fate manip you to hit yourself instead. In the end, the point is this. Every Warframe may have a different set of skills and embody something the other doesn't, but it really doesn't matter if you're just going to embody a tally mark by the time they're all done with you. Every Warframe is terrifying in their own right. The fact that every Warframe has a terrifying set of skills that can be applied to any battlefield universally because they feel like it should by itself alarm you. Warframes are a danger, and it doesn't matter which Warframe. Just by definition, they literally embody a danger to your very soul. Remember, fellow Tenno, whether you're a spellcaster or a warrior, it doesn't matter. For with your friends, your enemies will be without their heads. Have a good one.